Hi guys, good morning. Welcome to another Road Pilgrim car review, and today we've got the all-new BMW X2 on review with us today. So, for those of you who don't know what the BMW X2 is, it's actually a BMW X1 with a different body style. So it's like it's sort of a coupe style SUV, so to speak. So sportier, better looking, and a tiny bit more expensive. So for today's review, we're going to walk you through some of the differences. We're going to show you the exterior, show you the interior, and of course take the car for a drive, see how it fares on Singapore's roads, and you can then decide whether or not you think this is a better car or the BMW X1 is a better car. The X2 has been, the predecessor of the X2, for lack of a better word, was a bit of a dud, but this one is a lot better. So let's go and take a look at what it does. But before we do all that, if you're driving in Singapore, you're thinking about renewing your insurance, because it's that time of the year, car insurance of course, or if you need a quote for your used car, please check out the link in the description box below, because through those links we'll be able to provide you the best possible quote for your used car and for your insurance renewal as well. Free to inquire, so please check them out if you require those services. Without any further ado, let's get on with the review. Let's go. Alright, so jumping straight into the review, this is the exterior of the BMW X2. BMW X2, all about the exterior. So from the front, you can't really tell it's an X2 because it's quite similar to the X1. Some differences in the way the grille is set up, if I'm not mistaken. To be very honest, I can't remember what a BMW X1 looks like specifically in terms of the front grille design. But once you get to the side, you start to see some very clear differences, because you start to see the roof sloping and those massive 20-inch wheels. So 20-inch wheels on a car like that is pretty large, because it's not a large vehicle to begin with, but when I say it's not a large vehicle to begin with, you can see that the footprint actually does look quite large as well. Like, it looks quite prominent on the road. And I was just joking with a friend the other day that the new generation X1s kind of look like the old X3s in terms of size. All the cars have grown significantly. But if you were to compare dimensions, the X2 is factually a little bit longer than the X1. So that's something to take note of. If you're the kind of person who's like, oh my god, I can't parallel park with a car that's a little bit larger, then you might want to take a bit of notice about the fact that the X2 is a little bit longer. But that also translates to some stuff. There are some differences in the boot space as well. So the X2 is a little bit deeper in terms of the boot space. Better for carrying your golf bags and such. Now, I think the main prominent feature of the X2, which we will zero in on here, is obviously this very beautiful sloping roof line. So I think in the past, the coupe style SUVs that BMW have come up with have tend to look a tiny bit awkward at the back. It had this like sort of a droopy ass or droopy butt, but with the new X2, I think this is excellent. It looks so sleek. It looks like almost like a sports tourer. Doesn't really remind you of a SUV anymore at the rear end. So I think this is a really well done job by BMW, and I hope it continues into other models as well. And then towards the rear, you've got some really coolie style lights. So these are different from the X1 as well. Over here, they are a little bit more angular. There's a bit more design integrated into it. Here's the rear. I'm not sure what you guys think about the appearance of the X2. Put your opinions in the comments below. Let me know what you think, because I think the X2 is in some ways is a little bit polarizing as well. For me, I'll probably just buy an X1, but for some people, I think the X2 looks, a whole lot better than the X1. But for me, it's marginal. I'm not saying the X2 isn't a good-looking car, but I think it's not that good-looking that you would spend extra money on it. So let me know what you think. But one of the things that I really liked about this car is actually this emblem. So it's got a really nice matte chrome housing, which I think looks super premium. And it also houses the boot lever catch, and that's my golf bag. So as you can see, X2 will comfortably fit your golf bag. 2 golf bags inside will probably be a little bit of a stretch. You would have to remove the driver on the second bag, but nonetheless, I think it should fit. This first one fits quite comfortably. Let me just shift it a little bit and see. Yeah, so So granted, my golf bag is a little bit large because it is a cart bag. If you've got a stand bag, you will probably be able to fit the butt of the bag into this little nook here, and then that will fit quite comfortably. But in any case, really, really nice, I think very, very competitive boot space for a car in this segment. And I absolutely love the new logo at the back with the lever. Reminds me of the 2000s generations Volkswagens, where they integrated the logo with the boot catch. So yes, that's the exterior. Very aggressive looking car. Let's jump into the car and check out its interior before we take the car for a drive. Okay, so welcome to the cabin of the BMW X2. And if it looks like a BMW X1, you're absolutely right, because it's generally the same interior. But for the benefit of those people who haven't seen the BMW X1 and are maybe new to the channel or are seeing, you know, this generation of BMWs for the first time, let me just go through some of the basic things with you. So in terms of styling language, the entry level range, or the baby range of BMW, there are some key differences with the larger range of cars. So first things first is the integrated curve display is actually a little bit different. I think the integrated curve displays in the smaller cars are actually nicer because they are more compact and they don't have a sharp edge that you find here. And that's really something that kind of annoyed me when I first saw the larger, more rectangular integrated curve display. So this one is, you know, it looks good. So this is like 10.25 inch, so side by side, housed in a integrated curve display. It's got, yeah, I think it's got a really nice look. So you no longer have that digital driver display hood, you know, that you get in older generation cars. In terms of design, it's also pretty simple. I think there's been a lot of cleanup in terms of the interior dashboard design. So as with most brands, you know, they're trying to do away with the number of buttons that you find in the car. So a lot of things are now housed inside the infotainment unit. But with BMW's infotainment unit, I would say it's still one of the best out there. It's probably not as good as OS 7, which was my favorite, but this current OS 8.5 is still pretty easy to use. Temperature controls are a one-touch function, so which means if you're driving, even if you've got Apple Carplay on, so you don't have the main menus on, your temperature is still accessible directly. If you want to adjust fan speed, that's a little bit more, that's a two-step process right here. But if you just need to adjust your temperature, that's actually a one-step process, so that's really good. The other thing is that with OS 8.5, you have these like speed widgets at the side, which, you know, help you to reach certain sub-menus in the infotainment unit a little bit faster. But honestly, if you're the kind of driver that uses Apple CarPlay all the time, like myself, these widgets become less important because you don't have access to them right from your Apple CarPlay page. You would have to be in your BMW interface for you to utilize the speed widgets in the way that they were intended. So if you are using CarPlay, you essentially still have a two-step process to get to the widget and then to get to your sub-menu, which I haven't really experimented, but it might just be as quick to just go straight to the sub-menu. But all that aside, it is a system that I think we're getting used to now, you know, now that it's been around for a while. I mean, 8.5 to, like, essentially the differences between 8 and 8.5 were the speed widgets. So, but in terms of the whole system itself, there was a big jump from 7 to 8, and I think we were all still getting used to it. I think at this point right now, in 2024, we're probably already quite used to it, but I would say I still miss OS 7. But enough about my reminiscing. In the center console, you've got cup holders, you've got phone holders, and then you've got this sort of a floating console in the middle, which you can find on say the X1, the Active Tourer. All of them utilize this same center console. It's pretty nice. I quite like it. I think it looks quite futuristic, and it does open up quite a lot of storage space at the bottom of the floating console. So if you want to chuck some stuff underneath, you know, things that you don't use very often, there is a good amount of storage space there. Now, in terms of the interior fittings, this car has an M steering wheel because this is a M Sport trim. If you, I think the X2 is only available in the M Sport trim at the moment, but in the X1, if you're not going for the M Sport trim, you get a regular steering wheel. And then with the X2, what you also get is a sort of textured design on the panels. There's some hexagonal, yeah, not hexagonal, but like, yeah, some sort of pixel design on the dashboard as well. It's quite nice. It's if you didn't tell me it was there, I probably wouldn't notice, but this is one of the differences that is sort of exclusive to the X2. And then of course there's this lined pattern onto the matte chrome dashboard trim as well. So this is also unique to the X2. Does it make a big difference? Absolutely not. I don't really care about it, but I guess it's kind of nice to know that there's something different about the car, aside from the exterior, of course. You've got USB ports here as well. Forgot to mention, sorry. But like personally, I don't really use the USB ports. But if you're the kind of person that's always plugging your stuff in, then great. Let's talk about seats, because these are some of the best seats I have sat in a while. And it's actually quite surprising because it comes on a car that's quite entry level. So in terms of the way it hugs me, I think it's absolutely perfect. My wife was sitting in the passenger seat the other day, and she did mention that because she's quite a lot smaller, she mentioned that the side bolsters don't really hug her that much, and therefore for her it doesn't really feel like much difference from a regular car seat. But for me, because I'm a little bit bigger, what I find is that I do get a lot of side support, and it actually kind of presses into my body, which feels really comfortable. It's almost like a massage on its own, and also makes you feel really sporty. Makes you feel like, you know, like it reminds me of my track days at Sepang in the past, where you kind of cocooned in. I really enjoy that, and I think that the driving position in the X2 is actually really solid. I feel like I don't even feel like I'm driving an SUV actually, to be very honest. I feel like I'm just driving a sporty vehicle, like categorically. Alright, but enough about that. Probably said a lot about the interior. Let's jump into the back and check out how the rear seats in the X2 are like, and how easy it is for you to carry passengers and your family in the back of this car. Okay, so this is the welcome to the rear seats. I'm not sure if you noticed my little bit of a head ducking maneuver there, but that's obviously because of the coupe style sloping roofline in the BMW X2, which obviously is a defining feature of the car, you know, in comparison with the BMW X1. So obviously both cars same underpinnings, but body shape is different, body style is different. So if you got a sportier roofline there, it really does mean that getting in and out of the car, you have a little bit less headroom to work with. And if you are a bit taller, or if you're like me, short legs, long body, then you're gonna have to look out for this little bit of a roof line there, because you don't wanna smack your head on it. But in any case, so this seat is in comfort SS mode at the moment, so it's actually been moved back a little bit to release me from the driver's seat. In reality, this will be about maybe 3 to 5 cm forward, and but even in comfort SS mode, this is the amount of legroom that I have, so it's actually pretty decent. I can imagine that if with this moved forward another few centimeters, I would have a very good amount of legroom. Now, despite saying that headroom is affected because of the sloping roofline, which is a fact, I still have adequate headroom in the rear, and I'm a pretty, I wouldn't say I'm a tall adult, but I have a very long body. So if you have regular proportions and you are like 175 meters tall, but you have regular proportions unlike me, you would actually be quite comfortable in the rear here. So even if I slouch a little bit, you know, take a more relaxed sitting position, then, you know, headroom becomes very manageable. And I think BMW have done a great job here to ensure that despite aesthetic priorities to make the roofline sloping and sporty, rear passenger headroom comfort has not been compromised at least too much. So obviously coming in and out, you have to be a bit careful. But once you're inside, you know, you're not really gonna know, like, it doesn't feel like something's eating into your head. So I think that's a really good thing. In terms of the layout, seats are a little bit shallow, I would say. So on longer journeys, you know, some under thigh support might be better appreciated, but I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable by any measure. I quite like that the center seat is pretty flat. So this is a little bit of a toss-up, right? Because the center seat is a bit flat, the floor isn't too high. So in theory, this makes the X2, you know, it should be quite capable of carrying 3 passengers in the back. But the car isn't large as well, so you know, in terms of width, this isn't something like an X5 or something like that. So obviously, if you want to carry 3 people in the back, I think the low floor and the flat seat help to make a difference. But maybe ensure that there aren't 3 full-size adults. Like if you've got a helper and 2 kids at the back, I think they'll be more than comfortable. Or if you've got like 3 very skinny adults or 3 very skinny teenagers, yeah, I think it will work perfectly fine. Aircon vents are right here. There are rear aircon vents, so that's great. 2 USB ports as well to keep everybody entertained, you know. And ISOFIX points for your child seats as well, so that's great. Good. I forgot to tell you what we're doing next, but what we're going to do next is we're going to jump back into the driver's seat and take the car for a drive. Let's go. Alright guys, so back in the driver's seat of the BMW X2, and we are about to go take the car for a drive. But before we head out for our drive, let's go through some basic specifications about the car as usual. So this actually shares the same drivetrain as the BMW X1, which we reviewed a little bit earlier on in the year. And this car is powered by a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine. And this is good for about 121 brake horsepower, 250 Newton meters of torque. Now, BMW says that this car, the BMW X2, will do 0 to 100 in about 10.5 seconds. But when driving it, it definitely feels a little bit faster than that. It feels quicker than the 10.5 seconds that's listed. And I think that's probably, in my opinion, due to the fact that this segment of cars by BMW utilize a 7-speed dual clutch, which generally works extremely well, shifting gears up very quickly, quick shifting as well, and I think that feels like a very pleasant thing. In fact, I think historically a lot of BMWs, not just this one, actually feel quicker than their indicated 0 to 100 timings. So with every review that we do, most of the time there is one kind of outstanding feature about the drive of a car, you know, whether it's comfort, whether it's driving dynamics, whether it's power. And interestingly, for such a sporty car like the BMW X2, I feel like the most prominent feature about its drive is actually the amount of comfort that you get from the car. So it's actually something really surprising, and this was something that kind of took me by surprise as well, because when you first look at the car, extremely sporty outlook, right? Really good looking car, really fierce angles, and as you saw earlier as well, you know, like the car looks very, very, very aggressive. And it comes with 20-inch wheels as well as standard, which was kind of, you know, which was really surprising, because I think the first thing that you think of is that, will this car be uncomfortable? And the quick and simple answer to that is absolutely not. In fact, I think it is extremely well sorted for the setup that it has and for the segment that it has. So I think a lot of sporty SUVs in this sort of segment, for lack of a better word, the entry-level segment. I know that the X2 isn't exactly a cheap car as well, but you know, in terms of the BMW hierarchy, it's still towards the lower half of the lower half of the hierarchy. So you would imagine that a car like that, you know, typically will have a firmer suspension setup to ensure that road manners is well sorted. But in exchange, normally what happens is that the car does feel a little bit more jumpy, a little bit more less comfortable, so to speak. But in the case of the BMW X2, I think comfort is one of the things that kind of hit me the most. I was actually really surprised with how the car performed, especially in Singapore's roads where we get a lot of these uneven surfaces, roadworks then patched over. So road surfaces can be a little bit bumpy, but I would say that I feel extremely happy in the BMW X2. In fact, coming off just the previous review, which was the Volkswagen ID.5 GTX, this is a way more comfortable car, way more sorted in the way it takes on all these uneven surfaces on the road. Obviously, it's not going to be as comfortable as something like a 5 Series, but that's not surprising. But if you compare what's around in this segment, I would say that the BMW X2 has done a really good job. Let's talk about power, because I think a lot of people have been saying that, or have been voicing concerns that with the new drivetrains being Cat A friendly, whether or not 121 brake horsepower is enough. And the answer to that is yes, absolutely yes. So obviously it's not going to be breaking any speed records. It's not the quickest car on the market, but for the average Singaporean or for the average road user, I would say that the 250 Newton meters of torque ensures that the car picks up off the line easily, effortlessly. And there's actually no way that you would classify this car as sluggish. It is actually, there are no segments or there are no points in your drive where you ever feel like this car is going to be sluggish. In fact, being a 3-cylinder, one of the things I also noticed up on the highways is that cruising RPMs are a little bit lower than your typical 3-cylinder. So if you compare 3 cylinders in the market, typically what happens is that they're all fine around town, and then once they get up to speed at about 90, 100 kilometers per hour, then you start to see the RPMs creep past 2000, which is of course a little bit higher than what you would get on a 4-cylinder. So, I think in the past, what we have kind of categorically said is that 4-cylinders are probably a little bit more relaxed on the highway, and 3-cylinders are a little bit better in town. But in BMW's case, I mean, this 3-cylinder has been used for a long time, more than 10 years actually. Some of the original 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbo engines are actually 10 years old today. So it's been a long time that they've been using this engine setup along with the 7-speed dual clutch, and I think that with that kind of experience comes some sort of refinement as well. It's been, for lack of a better word, perfected to a certain extent, and just heading up to the highways now, so probably want to show you that a little bit. So pickup is responsive, there's no like turbo lag is not too apparent as well. Obviously there's going to be a little bit, but it's not too severe. Let me just get up to speed. Got this nice S2000 coming up beside me. Oh man, I've run into traffic. What? At almost 10 o'clock in the morning? That's insane. Okay, but anyway, let's not digress. I apologize for digressing, but yes, so up on the highways when I'm cruising around 90 to 100, the X2 probably maintains like a 1008, 1009 RPM, a little bit below 2000, and I think that's a really good spot to be. So obviously with the modern 4-cylinder mild hybrid engines, those can do maybe like 1006, 1005 RPM at 90, but it's really not too bad. It's really quite good considering that it's a 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. And I think a lot of the experience that BMW has gained over the last 10 years of using this exact drivetrain, I think has led them to create something that is very well-rounded to drive. So overall, if I have to summarize this whole thing, I think it's got very, very good comfort, well sorted driving dynamics for its class. Firm suspension, it's firm, but it's comfortable, and of course that really helps with body roll as well. So if you chuck this into a corner, you're not going to be too bothered or too frightened. And honestly, you know, with these sports seats, I mean, they're not really like bucket seats, but they are sort of like sportier seats with the side bolsters. They really hold you in place as well. And I must say that, you know, driving the X2, the driving position is really bang on. You know, you just feel like you're like in the center of everything. So that's really great. So yeah, comfortable, good to drive, and I think in its segment, it's probably got one of the most well-rounded packages as well, if you are into the whole aesthetics of the X2. Otherwise, if you're not into the aesthetics of the X2, then good news for you, because you get to save a bit of money, buy the X1, and essentially the cars drive the same, more or less the same. There are slight differences because the tire size setup is a bit different, but more or less the same in terms of the drivetrain. Alright, so now, yeah, let me just clear this speed trap, and then after that we'll go to push the engine a little bit. So one small difference I experienced with the X2, not entirely sure whether this is just subjective or not, but the engine note does sound a little bit deeper than the X1. Not so revvy, a little bit more clattery, but I'm not sure whether that's just specific to this test unit or whether or not all X2s are like that. It's not an unpleasant sound by any means, but I would say that if my memory serves me correctly, I recall the X1 to have a nicer engine note and a nicer engine sound, exhaust sound as well. But yes, all that is very subjective. Just if you're very nitpicky, you can, you know, take this as a reference and look out for it when you go for your test drive as well. So really, you know, I think one of the key things in deciding between the X1 and the X2, probably go down and see the car for yourself, sit in it, especially the second row, and then you can see which car you prefer. Yes, and with that, you know, if you have any other questions about the car, about the BMW X2 that I didn't cover, please put them in the comment section below. Put your questions there. I'll do my best to answer them wherever applicable. And then, obviously, if this review has been useful to you in any way, or if you've enjoyed the review, please consider liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and giving the channel a subscribe, because we've got new reviews coming out every single week. It would be wonderful if you could join us for those reviews as well. And just a quick gentle reminder before we head off. So if you're a driver in Singapore, you're looking for insurance renewal quote for your car because it's that time of the year again, or if you're looking to sell your car for the best price possible, check out the links in the description box below. We've got free services for you to inquire, or rather we've got a free service where you can inquire for these two things. No obligations at all, so feel free to check us out, so that we can give you a quote for those services. And if not, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.